Good evening and welcome once again to the Week in Review. During the course of the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to be highlighting the major news stories that took place over the past week, giving you a second chance, if you will, to see some of the things which for one reason or another you might have happened to miss as they were occurring. Well, of course, the big news in the province this past week, negotiations between NAPE and the province resumed late in the week, and late yesterday there was the good news that the strike is essentially over. There will be a return to full negotiations. The workers could be back on their jobs by as early as Monday. Elsewhere, while the price of gasoline continues to decrease, prices of other commodities in Newfoundland are still going up. A Liberal committee says there are serious problems with regards to the healthcare sector in Newfoundland, and the hunger fast for Senator Jacques Hébert is finally over. We'll have details of those stories and others when the Week in Review continues in just a moment.
I'm Michael Connors. Join me every weekend on NTV's Issues and Answers as I interview the province's top newsmakers. That's Issues and Answers, airing at 12:30 every Sunday on NTV, 12 noon in most of Labrador.
I'm Beth Penny. We could all use a little bit of good news these days, so join me Monday nights on the award-winning NTV Evening News Hour for Silver Linings.
Well, it was week 4 this past week for the 5,500 illegally striking NAPE members in the province. But on Thursday, it was announced that the two sides, the union and as well the Provincial Treasury Board, were going to return to the bargaining table in the hopes of reaching some sort of an agreement to get the workers back to their jobs. Well, now the discussions, I should say, were not exactly aimed at ending the dispute entirely. Rather, it was hoped they would lead to a resumption of full-scale negotiations. Now, during the course of the strike, the government has maintained that negotiations could not take place while the strikers were out illegally. On Thursday evening, NTV's Lynn Burry had been attending the sessions as they got underway. That evening, she filed this report.
NAPE President Fraser March, along with the MOS and General Service bargaining team, arrived here shortly before 5 o'clock. They are optimistic that this time a back-to-work agreement can be reached.
I don't have any particular goals set. I just want to sit and talk to the Minister of Labour, primarily about the Premier's statement of last night.
Are you encouraged by the Premier's statement? Are you optimistic? How would you describe it?
If the Premier was sincere last night, then it seems the government has taken a radical shift in the position it has taken over the past 2 years.
In what way, sir?
And he obviously is a parity man. I heard him say so last night.
Why are you doing it and not the other team that was here before doing it?
The other team is here with me.
But what is the significance of you being here, sir?
No great significance. It's just that I'm the president of a union that has 2 strikes going, and I'm going to talk to the Minister of Labour about the statements of the Premier and see if talks can be started again based on what was said last night.
How quickly would you get your people back to work?
Pardon?
How quickly could you get your people back to work?
Oh, I wouldn't like to talk about that.
Mr. March, why do you...
There's no plans made.
Mr. March, why do you think that the Premier has, in your words, made a radical shift in his opinions?
I think possibly because he realizes this dispute is doing serious damage to his government. I suspect his polls will show him reasonably well down. Not as down as far as I'd like to see them, but certainly reasonably well down. And I think he wants to do something about it.
The Minister of Labour, Ted Blanchard, is also in an optimistic frame of mind. Going into the meeting, he said government wants the workers back on the job as soon as possible. He is confident that all issues, including wage parity and Bill 59, can be addressed to the satisfaction of both parties.
I'm very happy to sit down with him, and I have no comment other than to say that we're having this meeting.
After carefully assessing Premier Peckford's comments last night, NAPE now feels the provincial government is showing a major change of attitude. Both bargaining teams have been talking inside this building for well over an hour. And right now it looks like it's only a matter of time before the striking government employees return to work. Lynn Burry, NTV News.
Now let's bring you up to date. That particular session lasted about 6.5 hours. That was well into the early morning hours of Friday morning. At that point, they adjourned. Both sides emerged from the meetings not quite so optimistic as they had been when they went into them. Nevertheless, they went back to the bargaining table again yesterday afternoon at around noontime. By 4 o'clock, the good news. In other news from this past week, meanwhile, in its recent budget, the provincial government announced that it was increasing the sales tax on building supplies by 4 cents. This week, both the Provincial Home Builders Association and as well the Newfoundland Construction Association publicly voiced their displeasure with that move. On Wednesday, the Home Builders Association indicated they're hoping to meet with officials of the Finance Department to see what, if they can have described as the catastrophic increase, could be either rescinded or delayed. Vice President of the Association, Gary Reardon, says most consumers have absolutely no idea just how much of an impact the increases will have on the price of a new home.
I don't think the government really realized just the drastic impact this can have on our economy. Some people have suggested that the 4% retail sales tax isn't a major price increase, and I've suggested that perhaps it might only be $800 to $1,000. Now, our studies and the calculations we've done over the past couple of days indicate that the minimum increase on a house, a modest bungalow, is about $1,600, and in fact, on a larger home, something along the lines of a modest two-story, you'd be looking at $2,500. Now, that by itself perhaps isn't a major increase, but what you have to look at are the other major increases that have taken place over the past 3 to 4 months. We've seen a major increase in freight rates, a major increase in material prices due to the strong demand for materials in the United States. We've seen increases in the FST rate, 2 occasions on 1% each. That plus increased costs for permits and excavation and other things have all led to what we calculate to be an actual increase of about $7,800 on a bungalow, up to about $11,500 on a two-story home. Now, you have to appreciate that there is certainly a year-over-year price difference and that there would normally be an inflation factor of about 4%. But all told, we feel this is a dramatic increase and something that the consumer should know about.
Tuesday of this past week was a day of increases for Newfoundlanders. Although the price of gasoline at the pumps continues to go down as it has been over the past couple of weeks, Newfoundlanders are still paying the highest prices in the country. And as of Tuesday morning, they were paying out more to have a quiet drink as well, or even take the family out of the province on vacation. Effective today, the cost of enjoying what many consider to be one of life's luxuries, alcohol, has increased. The recent federal and provincial budgets, coupled with indications from brewers and distillers that they need a bigger piece of the income pie to maintain operations, have resulted in the increases. Let's begin with beer. A case of 12 of the suds has gone up by 50 cents to $13.25. A six-pack in the meantime will now set you back an even $7. But beer drinkers aren't the only ones who've been hit. Liquor has also gone up by an average of 60 cents for a 26-ounce bottle, while wines have increased anywhere from 20 to 50 cents a bottle, depending on the brand, quality, and size of the bottle. Now, if you feel that it's time you left the province and headed out for another location where perhaps the prices for such things as liquor, tobacco, and fuel are a little less, that too is going to cost you and your family a little more. CN Marine has announced that effective today, its ferry rates in the province have gone up. The passenger rate for the Port aux Basques North Sydney run will now be $11. That represents a 50-cent increase. Car rates are going up by $2 to an even $35 per vehicle. Now, if you're one of those who prefers to make the crossing in the comfort of a cabin, it'll now cost $64 during a night crossing, $32 for a cabin during the day crossings. But the North Sydney run is not the only one that's affected. Travelers using the ferry service between Goose Bay and Lewisport are also being forced to dip further into their pockets. Adult fares have increased to $50. Tack on another $74.50 for your automobile and another $102 for the use of a four-berth cabin, and you have a trip across totaling nearly $230. And as we've already indicated, the popular bottle for medicinal purposes to calm a queasy stomach on the high seas has already cost you more. That's before you even stepped on deck. Now, as we just mentioned, the price of gasoline in this province has been falling rather steadily over the past couple of weeks. In fact, late this past week, it was announced that Esso Canada was dropping its price of gasoline by 2 cents a litre. That was right across the country. But as we heard in this report on Thursday evening, an official in the gas retail industry says the joy will only be short-lived.
Consumers in Atlantic Canada may finally be getting a break at the gas pumps, an average drop of 6 cents per litre since January. Though people expect gas prices to drop even further, given the dramatic fall in world oil prices.
With the fall in prices, it would probably be fairer if it did go down further.
They're starting to come down, and I think I would like to see that continue.
I'd like to see it go down another 3 or 4 cents anyway.
You think that's fair?
That's fair, yes.
Unfortunately, it's not just the cost of crude which determines what we end up paying at the gas pumps. Here's how the price of a litre of gas breaks down. Using Nova Scotia as an example, a litre of regular leaded gasoline now stands at 52.1 cents. Of that, the Nova Scotia government takes 9.7 cents. The federal government collects a further 7.5 cents in excise and sales taxes. The gas dealers get up to 4.6 cents, and about 30.3 cents goes to the oil companies. Government, however, takes a much larger share when you include indirect or wellhead taxes. It can vary slightly from province to province, but on average, provincial and federal taxes before and after gasoline reaches the pumps amount to between 60 and 70% of what you and I pay for a litre of gasoline.
There's a saying in the industry that selling gasoline is really collecting taxes for the government.
Dale Mader is head of the Gasoline Dealers Association of Nova Scotia. He says consumers can expect further price reductions in this region because of falling world oil prices, but not for long.
I would think that if we get another 2 cents a litre reduction, we'll be doing quite well. And failing any move by the governments, provincially or federally, to reduce their taxes, I don't really think that we're going to see that much more of a decline at the pumps. And I would think that 6 months from now, the honeymoon will be over and we'll see prices go back up.
It was announced this past week that the company ERCO, which operates out of Long Harbour, is planning a 3-week shutdown, with officials adding that the company is now going to assess its entire operations. That's to determine how well it can compete in the world marketplace. Some 30 employees are expected to be affected and laid off during that 3-week period. Provincial Mines Minister Jerry Dinh says he is keeping a very close eye on the situation, but he feels, at this point at least, it's still just a little too early to tell what exactly is going to happen.
When they get into the summer season, they generally lay off to 30 or 40. They are temporary employees, they're not the permanent ones. Plus that ERCO is, of course, competing in the world market. Phosphorus is a good product, is used in soap, but they're getting other products now and cheaper products now. So they're currently looking at their operation to see what, if anything, they can do to make sure that they stay in operation. And so the 30 to 40 layoffs is normal, but we've been made abreast of the fact that they're looking at their operation right now to see what they can do to cut costs.
Are you worried at all that some of the permanent employees could as well be laid off?
Well, I'm not in a position right now to be able to make a statement on that until they do their assessment. They're going through an assessment, and they've kept us fully abreast of what's going on out there. And until they finish that assessment, I think it'd be unwise for me or anyone else to speculate as to whether there'll be layoffs. They are planning, of course, a shutdown this summer of 3 weeks, whereby they're hoping their employees will take their vacations at that point in time. But I don't see it as a dangerous situation or anything. I see it as problems that most companies have had, and the fact that they're doing the wise thing and making sure that their operation is secured.
A Liberal committee studying healthcare in this province says there are some serious problems, and the City Council in St. John's must decide this coming week what exactly to do about trucks that are using streets in the West End. We'll have details of those stories and others when the Week in Review continues in just a moment. The chairman of a Liberal committee that has been studying the quality of health care in this province says the budget did very little to alleviate their particular concerns. Walter Carter says problems such as bed and staff shortages still exist in this province. He says one pleasing item in the budget, though, was government's decision to drop the suggestions of the Green Paper on health.
Traveled around the province, as you know, on the committee. We talked to hospital administrators and doctors, and in some cases patients and ex-patients and so on, and we found that there are a lot of problems in our healthcare system, brought about in the main by the government's restraint program, and shortage of specialists, for example, in many hospitals, bed closures, and shortage of staff in other areas of administration as well. So there are a lot of problems, and I don't think that the measures outlined in the budget will have too much effect on remedying some of these problems.
Do you think the fact that the provincial government totally dropped any of the ideas that were in the Green Paper is a good sign or a bad sign?
Well, I think it's a good sign because certainly most of the options outlined in the so-called Green Paper were unacceptable. Privatization, for example, that's certainly not acceptable in Newfoundland, not in healthcare, in that aspect of it. A reduction in service, I don't think we could reduce the service anymore. To have reduced it any further would, I think, have brought really very severe hardship on a large number of Newfoundlanders. So certainly, like I said, the options contained in the government's Green Paper were unacceptable anyway. So I think they did just what they had to do.
The long Easter weekend last weekend saw a major demonstration on the part of anti-abortionists in St. John's. Now, that rally was held at the Health Sciences Centre in St. John's on Good Friday. But proponents of the other side of the issue also made a few points of their own last weekend. But it is the way in which they did so that has a number of people a little upset. Both sides in the abortion issue made their points over this long Easter weekend. But it seems there were some differences of opinion as to how best to get the message across to members of the general public. On Good Friday morning, despite the poor weather conditions, hundreds of people turned out at the Health Sciences Complex in St. John's to demonstrate against the abortions conducted routinely at the hospital. Organizers of what has become an annual Good Friday rally had hoped there would be a better turnout, blaming the poor weather conditions for the rather poor showing.
I think these people are obviously very committed with the lousy weather that we have, and to get this number of people out on a miserable day when they could all be staying home in bed is a sign that there's a great strength of opposition to abortion, and that opposition will continue until there's no abortions performed. This event was started about 1980 by the girls at Holy Heart of Mary High School to protest the abortions that go on here every week. And since then it has become an annual event, and we think a very important one for having people stand up and be counted as pro-life supporters. Abortions are still going on in this hospital, which a lot of people aren't aware of, every week. And this Good Friday silent vigil is just our way of protesting those abortions and just to make people aware that they are still happening and we're still protesting them.
How about the baby? Don't they have, I know they don't have any say, but why kill them?
The argument that people have a right to do what they want with their bodies.
Okay, fine, but there are alternatives to abortion, 9 months is not a long time if it's that much pain for a person to go through, considering the pain that they're going to go through later on down the road. If they turn around and have children, what kind of a feeling are they going to have when, is this your first child? No, well, no, it's not, because I already killed one of them.
It was 2 days later, Easter Sunday, that there was evidence of the opinions of at least some of the pro-abortion side's members. But instead of a mass rally or demonstration, that individual or group of individuals decided to get the message across in a rather different way. Those attending the Easter Sunday services at the Basilica in St. John's were treated to a display of vandalism. Spray-painted under the statue of St. Patrick was a swastika, which is, of course, the emblem of the Nazi Party. And on the other side of the Basilica's main doors, under the statue of St. Francis, the words "Freedom of Choice" had been painted. When contacted for a comment this morning, Basilica Parish Priest Monsignor Dennis Walsh indicated he would rather not make any public comments on the incident. Father Walsh did say he suspected the vandalism was the work of someone supporting the pro-abortion movement, but he added that publicly reacting to the incident would only serve to perhaps add more fuel to a fire that need not necessarily continue to rage in such a fashion. An investigation into the vandalism at the Basilica is continuing. So far, police report no arrests have been made. There was some good news on Monday of this past week for the fasting Liberal Senator Jacques Hébert. It was announced that a committee has been formed to look into the revival of the Katimavik program that Ottawa recently cancelled. Now, local spokesperson for the Katimavik program, Jeannie Hewson, says it is a step in the right direction, but she adds there is still quite a long way to go before the program is completely re-established.
I do feel that he accomplished what he set out to do, which was to bring the focus onto youth and youth issues.
Now, what about this committee? Do you think it will prove or bring any results?
It's hard to say at this point. They're basically checking into different avenues of funding, such as the private sector, provincial governments, and also municipalities, and they're basically just going to see if they can raise the money to extend Katimavik for at least another year.
Do you think it will work?
I have no idea. I really wouldn't be able to tell you right now.
Do you think in order for this program to really work that it has to come back to federal government's assistance?
Probably not. Another thing certainly that Senator Hébert's hunger strike has accomplished, it has sensitized also the private sector to the fact that Katimavik is a very worthwhile program, and also towards youth issues. And I think that perhaps they have a better chance of raising the funds now from that part of the public than they did before. Whether or not they're going to need additional federal funding remains to be seen.
Provincial Development Minister Hal Barrett is heading up a delegation which left for Norway earlier this morning. Now, Barrett says 24 business representatives from right across this province are taking part in the mission. The trip is expected to cost the government anywhere from between $20,000 and $30,000. But Barrett says with the intention being to help prepare the Newfoundland business community for offshore development, the money is being well spent.
Trying to focus now on some of the specific opportunities for smaller business people in Newfoundland to identify with respect to the Hibernia project. We've been going through an exercise of bringing a number of major business people and investors into the North Sea area and exposing them to some of the major production platforms that are under construction. And it's been on a more of a generalization basis. And now we're starting to get more specific in that we're now bringing it down to addressing areas such as heating, ventilation, secondary steel processing, instrumentation, stationary equipment, that sort of thing. So we focus now on 4 or 5 of these small sub-trades, if you wish, that will be very much a part of the construction of the Hibernia project. So we've gone across the province and we've identified, I think it was 24 or 25 different companies who will be sending representatives on this mission into Norway to see a project similar to the Hibernia project under construction.
And finally, in news from this past week, after many delays, the mayor and the city councillors in St. John's have finally met with the committee that is responsible for drawing up the controversial West End truck traffic study. At next Wednesday's public meeting, the councillors are going to have to decide which of the 3 options that are contained in that report they consider to be the best one to pursue. But for his part, the mayor says his mind is already clearly made up.
And we're not worried about the ordinary truck, the ordinary bakery truck or the ordinary oil delivery truck. We realize they have to go on residential streets. But some tractor trailers, for instance, are bound to the Brookfield ice cream, say, or to Purity factories or to some of the other areas around Mundy Pond there. Well, they cannot use the Harbour Arterial to get there. So I think, personally, the only solution is to improve the off-ramp, which was poorly designed by the engineers that built the Harbour Arterial Road, to improve at the cost of $30,000 or $40,000 the off-ramp, to allow more and more trucks to go out the Harbour Arterial and use the Crosstown Arterial to get to the Village and Avalon Mall areas, and trucks that must use, say, Hamilton Avenue to get to the Brookfield Ice Cream or Purity Factories or some other place like that, or a truck, for instance, with a large load of furniture for a household, they will simply come to City Hall first and justify why they have to use it, and then they'll be given a permit for that one trip. Now, that's only my own opinion. I don't know what council will decide, but we just cannot. It is not logically feasible to ban all trucks from all city streets and put them on the Harbour Arterial, because there is too much freight moved within the city itself to have that kind of law brought in.
And that completes our look at the major news stories for the week of March the 29th through April the 5th. Remember, if you happen to miss something as it happens through the course of the week, join us each weekend in this program when we'll be doing our very best to recap the major news stories for you. For the Week in Review, I'm Alan Rowe, wishing you a most enjoyable week.